I locked your credit card. My husband's voice came through the speaker of my SUV as calmly as if he were reminding me to pick up milk. Before I could even respond, my mother-in-law's voice pushed onto the line. Ask us before you spend a dime. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I ended the call, started the engine, and drove straight to my bank. 2 hours later, my phone showed 55 missed calls. And by then, everything they thought they controlled was already gone. My name is Emily Carter, and until that afternoon, everyone believed I was the quiet wife who never fought back. For 17 years, I'd chosen peace over pride more times than I could count. Mark and I met in our 20s. He was starting a construction company with one pickup truck and more confidence than money. I was finishing my CPA. Over the years, his company grew, and so did my career, quietly, specializing in finances for medical practices. My income was excellent. Very few people, including Mark, realized just how excellent. Together, we raised 2 kids, Olivia and Ethan, and every financial decision I made was built around their future. 3 years earlier, Mark's father died suddenly, and his mother Diane moved in with us. At first, it seemed kind. She cooked, she helped with the kids. But slowly, she stopped acting like a guest and started acting like an authority. Opinions became instructions. Instructions became rules. She questioned my grocery bags, my daughter's homecoming dress, my coffee beans. Every time I mentioned it to Mark, he said the same thing. She means well. Just ignore it. So I did. And ignoring it taught a controlling woman that I'd accept even more. Meanwhile, I never stopped quietly holding our family together financially. Handling taxes, adjusting retirement accounts, moving money so payroll never bounced during Mark's slow seasons, using money from an investment account I owned personally to protect his business. He never asked how it always worked out. He just assumed it did. Then came a laptop. Ethan's old one died mid-assignment, so I bought him a new one with the family card, a completely ordinary purchase. Diane saw the transaction before Mark did. By the time he called me that afternoon, the 2 of them had already decided I needed to be taught a lesson. What neither of them understood was that the credit card was never the foundation of our family's financial security. I was. At the bank, my branch manager Karen walked me through everything, calm and professional. I redirected my paycheck out of the joint account. I stopped the automatic monthly transfers that had quietly propped up Mark's business for years. Transfers he never knew existed. I separated my personal savings, my brokerage account, the inheritance trust from my aunt that I'd invested rather than spent. I removed myself as guarantor from Mark's business credit lines wherever legally possible. Every signature represented a boundary I should have drawn years earlier. You've spent your career protecting other people's financial futures, Karen told me as I left. Don't apologize for protecting your own. By the time I got home, Mark's truck and Diane's car were both gone, and my phone was already exploding. Texts about payroll not processing, about the mortgage payment pending, Diane's message simply asking, "What did you do?" I almost laughed. For the first time, they were finally asking the right question. When Mark burst through the door, he looked terrified, not angry. Payroll didn't go through. I know. The operating account is short. I know. Diane rushed in behind him, and for the first time since she'd moved in, she wasn't smiling. "What did you do?" she demanded. I looked at her and said simply, "I protected what belonged to me." Then I brought down 17 years of paperwork. Every folder, every hidden transfer, every quiet rescue I'd made without ever asking for credit. The $32,000 that saved his payroll one January he never knew about. The IRS penalty I'd paid from my own account. The down payment on the lake cabin, funded by my inheritance, that he'd assumed came from the business. Folder after folder, the picture became impossible to deny. Trust had quietly become assumption, and assumption had become entitlement. Our kids walked in during all of it. Olivia stood beside me the way she used to when she was 6, and sensed I was upset. And when Diane told the kids this was between adults, Olivia, my 16-year-old, said quietly, "It became our business when you started treating Mom like she couldn't make her own decisions." Ethan admitted he'd felt guilty for months, believing his laptop had gotten me in trouble. Watching that guilt hit Mark's face was almost harder to witness than anything else that day, because it proved this had never just been about money. Our children had been carrying weight they never should have had to carry. That night began the harder work. Mark asked to really talk. No yelling, no interruptions from his mother. On the back patio the next evening, he finally said the thing that mattered. I let my own mother convince me that protecting meant controlling. I became someone I never wanted to be. Not an excuse. Recognition. And that's usually where real healing has to start. A week later, Diane came by with a small pie and an apology of her own. Not a performance, but something real. She admitted that after her husband died, she'd been terrified of being alone, terrified her son wouldn't need her anymore, and that giving advice had made her feel useful again, until she convinced herself her advice mattered more than mine. I was driving a wedge between the two people who loved each other, she said. I'm ashamed of that. We set new terms together. One shared household budget we both reviewed. Personal accounts that stayed personal, no permission required for reasonable purchases, major decisions made jointly. And Diane, with love, no longer making decisions for our marriage. She didn't argue. She accepted the boundary, and that, more than the apology, is what convinced me she meant it. Mark surprised me a week later with a marriage counselor's card, already booked. In our first session, our therapist asked us each one question. What did you lose? I said. My sense of being his partner. Mark said, sight of the woman who'd been standing beside him all along. Over the months that followed, we rebuilt slowly. Sunday evening, budget talks over coffee, not out of obligation, but out of shared transparency. We kept our joint account for shared expenses, but held onto our own personal accounts too, because trust, I learned, doesn't require giving up independence. It requires honoring each other's responsibility. Diane found her own purpose volunteering at a senior center and stopped needing to insert herself into our marriage to feel valuable. She still offered advice sometimes. The difference was, now she waited to be asked. Almost a year after the day Mark locked my credit card, we celebrated our 18th anniversary at the same small Italian restaurant from our 10th. He slid an envelope across the table. A replacement credit card I never needed, since mine had worked perfectly all year. This one's different, he said. It's not about spending. It's about trust. I told him I never wanted the card. I wanted him to believe I was his equal. He squeezed my hand. You always were. I was just too blind to see it. People sometimes ask if I regret driving to the bank that afternoon. I don't. I didn't go there to punish my husband. I went there to protect my dignity. Revenge satisfies your anger for a moment. Self-respect changes the rest of your life. Mark chose accountability over pride. I chose boundaries over bitterness. Together, those choices gave our marriage a second chance. If there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this. Never confuse love with control, and never confuse silence with peace. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is the one who never had to raise their voice. If this story reminded you of someone you love, share it with them. Subscribe for more stories like this every week. And until next time, take care of the people you love, and never forget to protect your own self-respect.